In response to the unfortunate news that there will be no ReZero at Anime Japan this year, I decided to jump into the web novel for Arc 5. I figured I would document my thoughts as I go until I'm all caught up. Also, for the foreseeable future, ReZero videos will have to take a hit in terms of their visual quality due to a trigger-happy anime studio desperately trying to crack down on people talking about their work. Apologies for the dip in quality. It really sucks. I'm not happy about it. We're introduced to the arc with Subaru training outside of the new Roswell mansion, working on his physical capabilities now that his gate is completely destroyed, something completely omitted from the anime, at least at the time of writing. This situation leads to a great expansion of the relationship between Subaru and Beatrice. This arc has something I like quite a lot, and that's just character interaction. Reading Amelia's camp get to talk about random stuff is one of the best aspects of the series, so I love it when we get any kind of that content. People tend to undervalue character interaction or low action scenes, but without these kinds of scenes, like people sitting around the mansion talking, or riding in the caravan talking, or just like the scenes of Subaru and Beatrice training together, how else are we supposed to get invested when the action finally comes? I also want to compliment how I feel that every single character presented in this phase got some pretty good characterization, despite there being quite a large cast to work with in this phase, as we're handling every single royal candidate and their knight more or less, as well as throwing in the Van Estrella family drama. As a brief aside, Subaru going to Rem's bedside to tell him about his day, presumably every single day, is absolutely heartbreaking. After tons of character interaction, we finally get our first major event of the arc, heading to the city of Pristella to meet with Anastasia. Through this, we learn quite a few interesting things. We learn all of the accomplishments of the candidates. Priscilla gained notoriety for pacifying a hostile nation bordering Lagunica. Felt assembled those who resigned in commoners with hidden talents into her cabinet. Krush, who was initially projected to win, fell off plus ratio due to her memories being eaten by gluttony. However, both her and Anastasia also got some bonus points for the White Whale battle. Anastasia doesn't quite have a home in Lagunica, but she does have the bagging of important merchants. And finally, Amelia's camp has earned notoriety for killing both the White Whale and Sloth. Their slaying of the Great Rabbit, however, is not recognized by the general public. We also come to learn that Subaru and Al are not the only two people who come from another world. When we arrive at Pristella and find Japanese architecture built by Hoshin, the implications of this are interesting. That makes 3 people, all from Japan, that have been brought from our world. We don't know what brought Al or Hoshin in, but we know that the Witch of Envy brought Subaru. Did she also bring in Al and Hoshin, or did a respective witch bring them both in? What is it about Japan that brings in a witch influence? Something in our world is clearly affecting the ReZero world, as Japanese citizens across multiple eras are getting sucked in. At Pristella, we see lots of political interaction, broadly expanding our understanding of the geopolitical situation of Lagunica, which is something I think is pretty interesting. They were all gathered by Anastasia and are each offered something they might be interested in. Krush being offered information on gluttony, which holds impact for obviously not just her, and Amelia was offered a gemstone capable of containing her great spirit Puck. Negotiation is clearly a huge deal in this arc, and it has lent itself to much characterization for Otto, which is very much appreciated. The Estrella family drama was an unexpected turn of events, but it's something quite interesting. Teresia, the Sword Saint, was set to fight the White Whale but fell in battle due to her divine protection of the Sword Saint, transferring to Heinkel's son, Reinhard, mid-battle. Wilhelm ended up presenting Reinhard, causing a crash in their relationship. We see Wilhelm struggle with his distance from his grandson and attempt to finally make amends. The Estrella family is a very broken family. Reminds me very much of the Todoroki family drama stuff from My Hero Academia. I must, of course, mention Kiritaka, the pedophile, and Liliana, the songstress. Kiritaka I am not fond of. Liliana seems fine. I find characters whose entire purpose is to quite literally be a pedophile pretty lowbrow, unfunny, and not all interesting. Now, let's get to the meat and potatoes of the first phase of Arc 5. Regulus is clearly in the city, which is something of interest, and with the reveal of the Sin Archbishop of Wrath also being here, could they possibly be aware that Amelia is present in Pristella? What is their overall goal here? If they're here for Amelia, does that mean that the witch cult somehow knew of the meetings with Anastasia? As far as I'm aware, letters were only sent to royal candidates, so how could they know? Is somebody among the candidates a snitch for the witch cult, or did they somehow follow paths to Pristella? I also almost expected Sirius to be here to kill Subaru for killing Betelgeuse, as it was noted it was public knowledge, like a lot of times throughout this arc. Lots of questions here. We're introduced to a boy named Luzbel, and Sirius Romani Conti, Betelgeuse's family, tells us the story of his childhood love before dropping him from the bell tower and him exploding on the ground. Quite a gruesome, uncomfortable scene where everyone is enthralled with her speech. I've mentioned in the past that many different forms of love are very present in ReZero, and this phase has gone to prove that even more, with extrapolations on the Estrella family drama, Subaru and Betty's relationship, and the Sin Archbishop of Wrath. I wanted to save the best part for last in terms of the recap, but I want to talk about Subaru in this phase. Arc 5 Subaru is so far a vast improvement from the Subaru of the past. It's been about a year since Arc 4, and he is showing so much progress in so many fields. I cannot understate just how different Subaru is in this phase as opposed to, say, Arc 1. He is actively trying to avoid a situation like his public embarrassment by studying knightly behavior. The way he carries himself is entirely different, being able to rein himself in to some degree while at the same time not being completely flawless. He still has his characteristic emotional outbursts when Heinkel ruins the Astrea family reunion, but it's a far cry from what Arc 1 Subaru might have done. I also love that Subaru's first trial in Arc 4 is still with him a year later, as he reflects on his conversation with his mom. It would be impossible to forget those words, because the lesson he'd learned from them was something that can never be forgotten. Natsuki Subaru today lived with those memories inside of him. I've seen a lot of people say that it is nonsensical how Subaru doesn't think of his family, when it's quite the opposite. He does think of them, but he doesn't want to initially. He wanted to restart what he had perceived to be his failed life in this new world. But after his conversation with his parents in the trial, he allows himself to not only think about them, but internalize the lessons they have taught him before his transfer to the ReZero world. We also get to see for the first time after countless suffering, Subaru gets the praise he deserves. On one hand, it's nice to finally have, some people acknowledge not only his accomplishments, but the kind of person he is, but on the other hand, I don't want to see his ego get too inflated and have a massive ego-driven meltdown again. It's also interesting to know that, nobody in this room really knows the amount of suffering that went into the accomplishments they praise him for. Either way, it's an extrapolation on previous plot points from Arc 4 where Subaru is attempting to not only love himself, but accept that people do love him. This praise continues further in the one-on-one with Wilhelm, somebody Subaru greatly respects. Wilhelm praises Subaru's character, but also states he is somewhat like his wife in the sense that he has had a bad habit of neglecting and shoving aside your own feelings as you focus on those people around you. We also see a furthering of Subaru's change in perspective towards Return by Death and looping. He's grown far more uncomfortable with the prospect of his loved ones dying, even if he can reset. Return by Death is something he doesn't want to have to rely on and hasn't had to for the past year until he restarted. Subaru's year-long RBD streak ends with a bang as Losbel's body hits the cobblestone of Pristella. He finds himself back with Liliana, Amelia, and Beatrice stunned. He, for the first time in a year, suddenly died. I can only imagine the psychological backlash this will have for him going forward. Before I get into expectations, I'll briefly recap what I liked or disliked about this phase. I liked the political aspects and expansion of our geopolitical understanding of Lagunica. Character interaction and further characterization for so many characters was great and handled extremely well despite juggling a decently large cast. Subaru's character progression has gone exactly where I had hoped it had gone. He's a better person, but he's still not perfect. The Sin Archbishop of Wrath is a scary character with a very scary authority, and I really enjoy the extrapolation of the themes of love. What I disliked was the lowbrow pedophile characters. I find them mostly boring, but that's just me personally. In terms of expectations, my expectations for Arc 5 are as follows. I think that Subaru will end up uniting the royal candidates against the Sin Archbishop of Wrath. I think that Subaru will fall pretty far mentally, but I don't think it'll quite be the lowest that we've ever seen him. Amelia throughout this phase was portrayed frequently as naive, so I think that something in this arc will give her the opportunity to grow into her own, for lack of a better phrase. Sirius, I think, might be in Pristella to kill Subaru for his very public accomplishment of killing Betelgeuse, and I really am hoping for Subaru finally to get to do something really fucking cool. That's all my expectations or predictions for now. If you like this video, remember to like, comment, and subscribe. I will try to post one of these maybe every month. I'm going to try and get through a phase every month and see, what I'm thinking about it. I'll be sure to also update my expectations. You can follow me on Twitter. I post amazing takes, flawless takes. No one has ever blocked me for a good take before. And you can also join my Discord, which is in the description below. We talk about My Hero Academia and ReZero. I also post my live thoughts on the ReZero arc that I'm reading in there while I read it. So if you don't want to wait for the video, you can go there and you can also talk to me about it, So yeah, that's it. See ya.